Thanks everyone for being here. I'd like to thank Sarah and Simon from the Didsbury Cyber for organizing the whole thing for all of us here today, and my two brothers David and James for rehearsing this presentation live with me and sorting out the many bugs. I'm not a specialist on any of the subjects individually which I shall be talking about, but I feel very strongly about them and how they relate to each other. If any of you would like to correct me on anything, you're welcome to do so and add on. This presentation will take us from the psychological interpretation of this universe by our primitive ancestors to how that perspective changed over time as a species evolved a greater intelligence thanks to new discoveries. The story will then take us to how matter in all its various forms is created in this universe, ultimately giving rise to life on planet Earth. This in turn broadens the topic of how all life on Earth, including animals and plants, are genetically related, eventually following the branch of the tree of life that led to the evolution of humans and our technology. The narrative finishes on where technology is taking us and ends on the subject of the possibility of life happening elsewhere. And if it is intelligent, how will they think? So I'm going to start screen sharing. There's somebody who wants to come in from the waiting room. Okay. Okay, evolution from the stars to you. I'm just going to minimize that window where you can see people because it might obscure your the presentation itself. So evolution from the stars to you. Oops, my clicker isn't working. Just a second, I'm having a here it is, it's working. Okay. Belief systems have not always been accurate in our internal representations in reflecting what is externally real. Ancestors would have seen the stars turning over the Earth in the night sky, when in truth it is planet Earth turning on its axis. If you take your time and focus on the tree in the center and imagine that the stars are fixed, you will register the Earth's spin instead of the stars turning. After discovering this by myself by looking at a similar video, I found that there is a term that already describes this. It's called the overview effect. It's the title of a book. And it's the psychological change that happens to us astronauts when they see planet Earth in outer space, orbiting on its axis. Ancient civilizations understandably thought that the planet Earth was the center of this universe and that other planets, the sun and all the other stars, orbited around our location. They came up with the wrong mathematics to explain all this because they had at the time no other explanation. By around 200 BC though, Eratosthenes, a Greek polymath, quite accurately managed to work out the circumference of the Earth. But still at the time it was thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. The mathematical system that was invented by Indian mathematicians was assimilated into Arab mathematics by the 9th century. Using it, they vastly improved on astronomy. We still use the Hindu-Arabic numeral system today all over the world. Just look up anyone's phone number to prove it, and you'll be using the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. But they still thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. In the 16th century, Nicholas Copernicus proposed that the Earth orbited the Sun. This had already been proposed before, just before the time of Eratosthenes. But then the Earth-centered model of the universe had prevailed. When Copernicus presented this, though, it became a major event in the history of science, triggering the Copernican revolution. But even though he was proved correct on that one and forever left us that legacy, he wrongly still believed that the sun was the center of the universe. Giordano Bruno then proposed that the stars were distant suns surrounded by their own planets, and that these planets might foster life of their own. He also insisted that the universe is infinite and could have no center. The Roman Inquisition found him guilty of heresy and he was burned at the stake in Rome in 1600. Not only has a species sometimes been wrong about the interpretations of reality, but members of a species have been killed for being right. Even though Giordano Bruno was correct in all these things, what he did not know was that his views were just restricted to the Milky Way galaxy. Now, in this day and age, we know that what Giordano Bruno believed was real because we can prove it. and that the solar system itself orbits around the galactic nucleus of the Milky Way galaxy. In 1920 in Washington, some fuzzy smudges seen on deep sky photos were first debated about on the place in the sky in an event called the Great Debate. Herbert Curtis thought that the smudges were galaxies outside the Milky Way, but Harlow Shapley believed that they were still within our own galaxy. It's thanks to Henrietta Swan-Leavitt in a work in 1908 of the relationship between the luminosity and the period of a type of pulsating star called Cepheid variables that the Great Debate was later resolved. Using Henrietta's work in 1924, the astronomer Edwin Hubble proved conclusively that galaxies exist outside our own. He was opposed by many in the astronomical establishment of the time. The Big Bang Theory is the existing cosmological model of the beginning of this universe and how it all began 13.8 billion years ago, with a very high density and high temperature that expanded from a singularity. Physicists undecided whether this means the universe began from singularity or that current knowledge is insufficient to describe the universe now. Hydrogen atoms were mostly created after the first burst in what is called the Big Bang nucleosynthesis, when the first stars appearing from around 150 to 250 million years after that. Hydrogen is the simplest of the atoms and the lightest of them all. Stars are made from hydrogen undergoing fusion, which produces other elements in what is called stellar nucleosynthesis. The first stars were formed from the hydrogen produced in the Big Bang, which gravitationally accumulated into large concentrated densities. From the hydrogen left over that originally formed in the Big Bang, new stars continue to form all the time. How do we know the properties of materials we observe millions or billions of light years away? Light reaching us from such material has a specific signature from which we can determine what it is made from using the science of astronomical spectroscopy. A stellar spectrum can reveal many properties of stars. Emission and absorption spectrums can be used. With astronomical spectroscopy, we have found out that all the elements we know exist can be found all around this universe, and that they are mainly formed in different types of stellar events. Stellar means having to do with stars. Here they are listed, and according to how they were made, in a modified table of the periodic table of chemical elements. This is very important. It means that there are laws in this universe not based on the subjective interpretations of a human brain, but exist independently of human life, therefore are verifiably factual. This is a star forming out of a cloud of hydrogen. So in simple terms, after the Big Bang, the mostly hydrogen that was produced was gravitationally attracted to itself. Stars were born within the clouds of hydrogen in pockets deep within these clouds that gave rise to sufficient mass so that the gas began to collapse under its own gravitational attraction. As the cloud collapsed, the material at the center began to heat up and stars started to burn. Our own sun is a type of average-sized star and is at the moment fusing hydrogen into helium and is thus undergoing stellar nucleosynthesis. Stars come in different sizes and reach the end of their lifetimes in different ways, and so different types of elements are produced. The larger the star, the much shorter its lifetime. Most stars are single, but they can also come in pairs in binary star systems, or they can form in threesomes and right up to 7 star systems. Margaret Burbridge was part of a small original lot of scientists who discovered that stars form different types of elements from the original hydrogen they were made up of. She co-authored an important paper on stellar nucleosynthesis that was written in 1955. She died on her 100th birthday this year. This is a star going through stellar nucleosynthesis, forming heavy elements from the original hydrogen. In stars, there are layers of fusion shells, with the outer layers dropping fuel to lower layers, and heavier nuclei, atomic nuclei, being cooked up as you move towards the center of the star. Carl Sagan came up with the saying, "We are made out of stardust." And here we have a star going supernova and spreading all the different elements it has created into the universe, where they will eventually mix and create other compound materials. These are neutron stars, gravitationally attracted to each other until they crash. A neutron star is a collapsed core of a giant star with about 10 kilometers radius, which before collapsing had a total mass of between 10 and 29 solar masses. Scientists think that gold and silver are made in this type of event. And if you go to the nucleosynthesis periodic table of chemical elements, if you go to where gold and silver is, and then you align that with the colors, You can see they're made out of merging neutron stars and dying low mass stars. Just going to switch that red thing off. Oops. There. Okay. Oops. Oh, my clicker isn't working again. Just a second. Please bear with me. I'm having a problem here. Ah. Right.
No problem, Andrew.
Okay, sorted out. My clicker wasn't working well. I'm just going to start back on that one. This is a young star and its protoplanetary disk, forming from remains of older stars, which have reached the end of their lives once they have exploded, combining with the relatively abundant gas hydrogen left over from the beginning of this universe. The matter from generations of different stars comes together into very large objects, which form planets around stars like the sun, around which planet Earth orbits around. So it takes some time through nuclear synthesis for the elements needed for life to evolve as old stars add what they've cooked up to new ones. We now zoom into a protoplanetary disk and see large aggregations of matter forming. These get gravitationally attracted together to form planets such as our own Earth. Because the Earth is a geologically active world, we don't get to see asteroid impacts much on its surface, only recent ones. On the Moon and on planets like Mars, it's another story, and they are visibly full of such impacts. These aggregations brought to Earth all the elements needed to sustain life, as we know it. Traditionally, there is no settled agreement on whether life on Earth originated here in some water-related geothermal event, or that the seeds for life came to Earth in the form of some preformed organic molecules that were brought in on an asteroid or comet from outer space. Another option for the origins of life came up a couple of years ago. This is the Sulphuduris odaxviata, a bacteria found 2.8 kilometers deep in a South African mine. It harvests energy from radiolysis induced by particles emitted from radioactive elements in the surrounding rocks. We also know that Deinococcus radiodurans is an extremophilic bacterium, one of the most radiation-resistant organisms known that can healthily survive with no ill effects. 1,000 times the radiation levels known to kill a human. It is even more resistant than the tardigrade. These two bacteria species at least prove that life might be able to evolve without the light energy of a star. So we could potentially have life start off on some dark moon thanks to highly radioactive substances. Shall we have a break? Do you want to do a break for questions? Hello?
Yeah, hi Andrew, thank you. So,
shall we have a break for questions?
I think the only questions we've had is someone's struggling with audio on a MacBook Pro, so hopefully we can get them up and running.
Shall I carry on then?
Let's just give it a second. Are there any questions for Andrew so far? Keep going.
I hope I can deal with your questions.
What I forgot actually, Andrew, as part of the intro, was it is SciBite, Science in a Bar. We should actually be in the Albert Club right now with a pint. So if you haven't, you should probably get a cold one. And,
I've got some ice, some water. I've got my motorbike later. I've got to get my motorbike, so I won't be able to drink alcohol till I arrive home. But here's for anybody who can.
Drink responsibly, and back to you, Andrew.
Okay, so carry on with this. Right. Just a second, just let the clicker, for some reason it takes a while to, oh, there we are. Okay. On the early planet Earth, billions of years ago, all life was very small and simple. We still have very similar related life forms alive today. By studying them using technology, we can figure out that some of the original life forms are living inside and outside of us, and were our ancestors. All plants and animals that exist today are genetically related in the tree of life. Genetics is more accurate in determining what is related to what and from when it branched off from other species. That's why we know bananas have 50% of the same DNA as we have. By the way, the co-discoverer of the structure of DNA was Rosalind Franklin. We can broadly divide life on Earth into two types. Eukaryotes on the left are organisms whose cells are made from internal subunits called organelles, tiny cellular structures that perform specific functions. The eukaryote genetic material is within a membrane in the nucleus. Eukaryotes include protists, fungi, plants, and animals. A prokaryote on the right is a unicellular organism that lacks a membrane-bound nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. There is evidence that, so I'm just going to admit Sarah, she's in the waiting room. There, came up on my screen. There's evidence that organelles like these mitochondria, which are shown in this slide, it's an organelle that's found inside eukaryotes, and another one called chloroplasts. It's found in plants and makes plants green. There's evidence that the organelles like these mitochondria, which are shown in this slide, and another one called chloroplasts, which makes plants green, are the descendants of free-swimming prokaryotic ancestors. This is called endosymbiosis, and we know this because they have their own distinctive genetic fingerprint that resembles still existing free-living prokaryotes, which is different from the cell nucleus DNA that makes up the genome in animals such as ourselves. Both plants and animals have these related mitochondria. Now, we're told that we used to traditionally be told that mitochondria were sort of like rod-shaped, like these, elongated. But we know now, oh, somebody's raised their hand. Shall we wait till later for questions, or shall we carry on?
I'm just, and I know everyone's told me I've got a bad echo. Sorry about that. I'll just try and turn myself down. So Paul's got his hand up, but Paul's the guy struggling with audio. So
right. So what do you recommend I do? Because I'm breaking sort of like in between.
I'm going to get some headphones. And Paul, have you joined yet? I think continue. I'm chatting with him on chat.
I'll just go
Andrew, I suggest you carry on. Your actual slideshow is recorded, so Paul could catch up later on if necessary.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for dealing with that. Because I've got the PowerPoint presentation open on my screen, so I can't see what's actually happening. I'm getting notifications on my screen. I'm trying to deal with them, but it's difficult because I've got the PowerPoint presentation on. I'll carry on. I'll start with this one again, okay? There is evidence that the organelles like these mitochondria, which are shown in the slide, and another one called chloroplasts, which makes plants green, are the descendants of free-swimming prokaryotic ancestors. This is called endosymbiosis, and we know this because they have their own distinctive genetic fingerprint that resembles still existing free-living prokaryotes, which is different from cell nucleus DNA that makes up the genome in animals such as ourselves. So these mitochondria, they have, which live in eukaryotic cells, eukaryotes like us, have their own genetic fingerprint. And we think they used to be free-living and they used to exist outside of cells billions of years ago, but were engulfed by ancestors. Both plants and animals have related mitochondria. And we used to have the traditional image of mitochondria being static and rod-like, but no, we now know that they're very dynamic, they're very active. And these in purple are mitochondria around the cell nucleus, and you can see they're very, very active. This other slide is, you can see also mitochondria, but I've left it in because I wanted to highlight the cell nucleus. You can see it very clearly here in this other image. The other organelles we think are ancestral prokaryotes are called chloroplasts. Only eukaryotic plants have chloroplasts, and this is the general rule except for a few cases. Generally, they are what give green plants the color, and they use energy from light to power the functions, such like photovoltaic cells do. These are chloroplasts inside a plant cell. These are, climbing up the tree of life, in this next slide, we have euglena, which is a eukaryotic protist, and both a plant and an animal at the same time. This is an example of an animal with chloroplasts, just as plants have, and that our very distant ancestors might have had the ability to have been both plant and animal. We know that mitochondria in plants and animals are basically the same, having together a distinct DNA genome of their own, and only plants, we tend to have chloroplasts. These are ferns, a type of plant which we all know about from the Bracken Woods, and they breed zoogamously, which means like animals. The spores that are shed by it are a type of seed. When the spores set roots on a moist surface, they grow into an intermediate stage of a fern's life cycle that is a hermaphrodite and has both male and female qualities. This is called a prothallus and is only a few millimeters long. It releases male sex cells onto a thin film of water, and these actively swim seeking female sex cells, just as animal male sex cells, otherwise called sperm, do. This is a male sex cell finding the female parts of another prothallus, and it finds this female part of a hermaphrodite prothallus, and it climbs out and fuses with the female sex cell to produce an adult fern plant. This is an actual video of male sex cells of a prothallus going around a film of water, seeking for female sex cells. Now, these are animal sex cells, otherwise known as sperm, doing the same with animal female sex cells, known as ova. And aside from a lower number of tails in the male sperm compared to the plant sperm, there is not so much difference between these and the plant sex cells. Do you want to break now, or shall I carry on? I'll carry on, shall I?
Carry on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, is it too much information at one go, or are you happy with it?
Keep going. It's good.
All right.
Great.
Okay. We can learn a lot from fossils, not only what they look like, but much more. This is a fossil of Dickinsonia that lived around 560 million years ago, the oldest animal species ever recorded. And high amounts of cholesterol remains were found within the fossils, and that's how we know they were animals. Before finding that out about the cholesterol, we could not tell whether plants or animals, because of all they left was a fossil imprint, plus the cholesterol. We can obtain information about the hard structure of the body of an animal from fossils because these fossilize easier, but also information about soft tissue, thanks to muscle attachments on ammonite shells, for example, and also information about the environment they were found in, including fossils from other organisms, and so work out the environment they lived in. Information about related fossil species can shed light on the evolutionary change through time. Scientists believe that ammonites were free-swimming marine animals, and they looked like an octopus but carried a shell just as snails do. They looked like an octopus like this one, but they carried a shell like the snail. This is not a coincidence in this case. Octopus and snails are closely related. Both belong to a similar type of animal group called mollusks, an invertebrate of a large phylum, which means that they have a related body structure. This includes mussels, scallops, oysters, clams, slugs, snails, periwinkles, whelks, nautilus, squid, and octopus. They're all very closely related. Genetics is clear.
Andrew, I'm just going to interrupt you a sec. Got a question from Louise.
Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing.
Can you turn your volume down a bit, please?
Oh, sorry. Is it too loud? Sorry, my voice is very loud, and I've been told, and I was trying to modulate.
No, it's not your voice. It's the echo coming from my voice.
All right.
So Louise is asking from a few slides back what fossil was shown.
Which one was that? Sorry, let me go back. Do you mind if I...
26 or 26.
Right. I'll go back. That one?
I think it was a couple before. Louise, are you there?
Can you join us on audio, Louise?
She's saying it was the earliest one, so I guess the first one.
That one. What's the question? What is the question?
What is the name of this?
Dickinsonia. It's called Dickinsonia. I can spell it out for you if you want. D-I-C-K-I-N-O-S-O, Dick in Sonia, S-O-N-I-A. Okay? You're welcome. You're welcome. And shall we go back? Any other questions? No other questions? Shall I carry on then? Okay. So we're talking about mollusks and how Clams, slugs, snails, periwinkles, whelks, nautilus, squid and octopus are all very closely related. They have a very similar body plan. Now, this picture that you're seeing, this is another type of mollusk. And it's a good thing that we have genetics, because this thing looks more like a leaf, doesn't it? Genetics is clearer cut than the fossils, especially when you get exceptions to the rule, such as this mollusk called Elysia chloritica, the green sea slug. And it's a type of mollusk that looks like a leaf. This slug eats algae, which is plants contain the chloroplasts I mentioned before, but does not digest this. This slug eats algae, which is plants contain the chloroplasts I mentioned before, but does not digest these. Instead, it integrates the chloroplasts, which you can see on this slide, within its own cells and uses them as a plant does to power its function. So it's an exception to the rule. And without genetics, we wouldn't be as clear-cut. Time for a break, or shall we carry on?
Carry on, you might as well just carry on.
Okay. Now we're going to study the dinosaurs a bit. There are, of course, many types of fossilized animals and plants. This is the very well-known T-Rex. For where the muscles were visibly attached to the bone, we can work out how it moved and when it lived. This is a recreation of a related Archaeopteryx. From the remains, we can work out what its posture was like and whether it flew or just glided. We're getting so good at extracting information from fossils that we've been able to obtain the color of the pigmentation of the feathers of related species of this. So we can artistically, accurately recreate what a fossil looked like to this level. This looks like a mixture between a bird and a dinosaur, and it's no coincidence. Birds are what remain alive today from the dinosaur lineages. On the top right of this next slide, you can see how closely related birds were to dinosaurs. Zooming in what is called a clade, a group of closely related organisms, which means a group of, clade is a group of closely related organisms. We have T-Rex just beside birds. It was a theropod. Birds are also considered a type of theropod dinosaur, just as T-Rex. So when you eat your next roast chicken or chicken korma, remember that you are eating dinosaur. So I'm just going to admit somebody into the waiting room. Came up on my screen. Isn't that yummy? So remember, if you're eating a chicken, you're eating a dinosaur. It was closely related to T-Rex. They're both called theropods. Oops, my clicker. The thing I used to... Oh, it's not working again. Just a second, please bear with me. I have no idea why. Normally it does. Oh, there. Okay. This paved, sorry, we're talking about dinosaurs. Aside from the birds, all dinosaur species went extinct around the time the Chicxulub asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula around 65 million years ago. This paved the way for the evolution of mammals, and we're going to jump to around 5 million years ago, to the time of the mammoths. The closer to the present, so am I on the right slide? Yes. The closer to the present the fossils we extract are from when they lived, the more information we can obtain about them and build a better picture of the environment they pertain to. This is helped by some species from that time still existing or not having evolved much. Here, for example, we can see elephants that look the same as the ones that still exist today, but one of the predators, saber-toothed cats, has gone extinct. We would be able to tell these elephants were hunted by these cats by the puncture marks the cats left behind on the elephant's fossil remains that only fit the particular set of teeth. This fossil is related to what we now think eventually branched off and evolved into the human species from the common ancestor we had with chimpanzees. This is a type of Australopithecus. From fossil remains, we can also get information on behavior. By applying high-resolution trace element analysis to the teeth of an Australopithecine, we know that infants predominantly consumed breast milk for the first year after birth, just like humans. Australopithecines, which you can see in the middle of this slide, were sort of in between the common ancestor we have with chimpanzees and modern humans. They walked bipedally just like a human, but had the brain the size of a chimpanzee, and the hands were more suited to climbing than ours. Chimps knuckle walk on all fours most of the time. They do, however, walk bipedally on two legs when dragging an object like a log or a large branch behind them, as this gives them balance. By carrying an object in such a manner, bipedalism might have evolved to free the hands for other things, as tool use, which allows for greater resource extraction. This is an actual photo of a chimpanzee walking on two legs, held upright by the pull on the branch dragged behind. An example of this could have evolved further, of how this could have evolved further, and remind me of going to the butcher's. Closer to us in time, Homo erectus had left far more evidence to recreate its lifestyle by its own distinctive stone tools, which do not perish. Their characteristic Acheulean hand axes remain unchanged from 1.76 million years ago to around 130,000 years ago. We think they used wooden spears with a sharpened end. This is a typical Acheulean hand axe. We used to grab it from the base at the bottom and just stamp away at the corpse they were sort of like cutting up to eat or whatever. This is a species derived from Homo erectus called Homo heidelbergensis, which inherited the Acheulean hand axe from Homo erectus. The closer in time to the present, the better the preservation rate. DNA of these from around 500,000 years ago has been extracted, having been found preserved. Heidelbergensis is thought to have developed technology a bit further and were the first to use stone-tipped spears with these tips hafted on, as we have also found evidence of. This is a Neanderthal skull found in Gibraltar in 1848. It is known to have been seen and handled by Charles Darwin. It's a skull of an adult woman and can be seen at the Natural History Museum in London. This is a recreation of a Neanderthal woman. Somebody once mentioned it looked like the singer Shakira. Neanderthals are known to have survived in Gibraltar until around 20 to 30,000 years ago, it being one of the last home territories. This is a recreated view of the southern side of Gibraltar when the level of the sea was much lower and the land area was increased. Gibraltar is also known as one of the Pillars of Hercules, the other being a similar territory jutting out into the sea in the nearby northern coast of Africa. Everyone knows that legendary Hercules is renowned for his super strength. Neanderthals are also known for being much more muscular and stronger than Homo sapiens, which we know from the bone-muscle attachments of the fossil remains. Neanderthals are known to have interbred with Homo sapiens, so did not go extinct. A small percentage of their DNA is still alive in everyone today, so maybe the story of Hercules is a cultural memory of a very physically strong, ancient, hybrid human population. Homo sapiens are the only surviving representative of the genus Homo, which is sort of us, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo erectus, that's the genus Homo. As I said, Neanderthals interbred with Homo sapiens, so did not go extinct. A small percentage of the DNA is still alive in us today. When the main interbreeding with Neanderthals is supposed to have happened, overlaps with a sudden explosion in technological advancements called the Upper Paleolithic. So there might have been both genetic hybridization and cultural hybridization going on, as the best technological techniques survived and became more efficient as they merged. This tool is called a lisoire and is only known in prehistory from Neanderthal remains and from use in the present. It is thought as possibly having been passed on from Neanderthals to us. It is used for turning raw animal hide into leather. Tool use by animals is widespread. There's fish, dolphins, and mollusks that use tools. This is a Caledonian crow using a small stick to extract some insect from a log. Where's the grub? This is a chimpanzee using a long stick to extract termites from the nest mound. And this other one is of a chimpanzee using a log to break open a nut. Humans are the most dexterous of animals, though. We are the best at using our hands. And because we can plan ahead more by expressing internal representations externally, we can make it easier to survive by modifying the environment to suit us. By planning ahead, we can make better tools, which in turn produces more for less effort. This here on the screen is an example of the earliest computer. The finger is the equivalent of a mouse and a keyboard, and the floor and the dirt is the equivalent of a computer screen. In fact, being human is synonymous with technology, and it is believed that technology creates an environment that has accelerated our biological evolution. Robots of the future branch out from humans in the evolutionary tree of life. Because technology only evolves out of biology, all tech is a type of biotech. Some people fear that robots will one day replace humans and cause our extinction. I personally think that depends on how we program them. Robots can already physically perform just as well as humans. Some of them are already as agile as the best sports people. If we think that we are living in the equivalent of the Stone Age of the humans of the future, imagine how much better these robots will become. It's a bit scary because this is so beautiful to watch it. It's incredible we've made these things. Any questions so far? You okay?
Andrew?
Yeah?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Do you think we got the original idea of what a side... Can you turn your volume down a bit? Because there is an awful lot of feedback.
Oh, sorry, I didn't... Sorry, I thought you were talking to somebody else. I wasn't sure. Is it that bad? I didn't know that.
No, it's from anyone that's talking. But don't worry. So the question is, do you think we've already become cyborgs? Because we're in this bio shell.
Yeah.
We get into a car to go faster or a plane to travel miles. A computer tells us which way to go. Everyone's a zombie staring at a screen.
That's a very good question. Well, let me, I carry on then, because I was going to mention that in my next slide. Let me bring this down. Okay. Okay. And this next slide, robot and humans are merging, and that should be no surprise, because living organisms are biological robots. Robotic exoskeletons such as this one will lessen wear and tear in the body of workers or extend the lives of the elderly and the invalid in duration and quality. And these are just the first exoskeletons we've made. We'll make far more efficient ones. So from this point of view, the long sought after self-conscious artificial intelligence, AI, has already evolved. A good example of this is that all of you in the audience are watching and understanding this lecture by the technological extensions in the form of electronic screen, the electronic screens you are using. We've already become AI and the robots of the future. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm glad you agree.
Right, yes, that's why I left this slide in. I wasn't going to include it, but... Sorry, are you still getting the feedback? We didn't have it on Wednesday when we did the rehearsal with Simon. Are you still getting the feedback?
No, you're fine.
All right, somebody else, okay.
It's when I talk, I'm coming out of your speaker at your place and coming back.
Oh, right,
So don't worry.
Okay, I'll carry on, shall I? You're enjoying this, are you? Yeah, okay. Okay. Just going to, just a second, I need to move that there. Now, just a second before it takes a while for my clicker to come in. Please bear with me, I'm having problems with my clicker again, which is, it's like a mouse, but for PowerPoint presentation. Oh, I just realized how to fix that. Nanotechnology, that is miniaturized technology, might one day be sent into people to kill cancerous cells or to deliver drugs or heal broken tissue. So robotics will certainly have some uses. Everything, we are the robots of the future. We are here already. It's happened. If we ever get another earthbound asteroid like the one that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs, or even worse, a total planet destroyer, we can at least plan ahead on how to survive these. If life exists on other worlds, maybe on some of them, they never evolved the technological capacity to do so, or are just about to, and they got obliterated. We still have no guarantee on Earth that we can stop these, though. You know, we still might get hit by one. There might be one lurking behind the sun, heading this way. I'm a member of the Planetary Society, and part of our subscription goes towards funding astronomers who specialize in looking out for these. Technology is a signature of biology, and artificial night light will make us visible to intelligent alien life if it has the capacity to locate and view the world. Likewise, we would be able to determine if there's intelligent life on other planets by the same method. We are situated at just the right distance from our home star, relative to its size, so that liquid water can exist on its surface. Life needs liquid water or to be able to liquefy it, to be able to exist. Too close in and the water would all boil off. And too close in from a star, I mean, and the water would all boil off. And too far out and all the water would freeze. The pigment chlorophyll produced by the chloroplasts in plants mentioned earlier is also a telltale sign of life seen from far away from outer space. And it's something we will, because you can see this through the atmosphere, and it's something we will look out when imaging plants around other stars. We can already directly image so-called exoplanets, that's stars, planets around other stars. Even though this is, at the moment, without much detail, this will evolve to be much clearer. The star is blacked out so that the planets are highlighted. You can see 4 planets orbiting around the star in this one. One very close in, 2 further out, and 1 very much further out to the left. On this other slide, just below the arrow on the right, you can see an exoplanet also orbiting another blacked out star of a much larger size. Today we have studied the tree of life on our planet Earth. Seeing as this universe is so big and there's so much of the material for life to thrive off across this universe, can other trees of life exist elsewhere? Scientists think that it's very possible that life forms have arisen independently in other parts of the universe. They might have evolved along quite different, what's called evolutionary pathways than what we are accustomed here on Earth. Now, this is very important. Considering that we humans are life forms and that we are made out of the substances themselves made in this universe, we think that intelligent life in this universe is this universe consciously aware of itself. That is to say, the universe has evolved an animate consciousness from the inanimate processes of nucleosynthesis. Intelligent life elsewhere will also have come up with their own version of the periodic table of chemical elements, for example. If there is life elsewhere, how come we have not made contact with it yet? Where are they all? That is a question once posed by the scientist Enrico Fermi, which became known as Fermi's paradox. It could be that our technological signature in the form of radio waves produced by devices that transmit them from Earth, which travel at the speed of light through space, have not reached aliens yet. It might be because faster than light travel is not possible, and the distances involved are too big to be able to act on such broadcasts, as we have only been transmitting them for a relatively short period. Just over a century, isn't it? Or maybe faster than light travel will be possible in the future, but no intelligent life, in this galaxy at least, has technologically evolved it yet. For traveling through deep outer space, chemical fuel rockets will have to become a thing of the past, as faster technology takes over. Light particles or photons exert a small pressure when they bounce off a reflective surface and can be harnessed to push these sails, called light sails, as propulsion for attached spacecraft. This one is powered by light from the sun and could reach Pluto in 5 years or Mars in a couple of months. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft took just over 9 years to reach it using gravity assist. This is another type of light sail that uses light from a focused laser rather than the sun. With this, we'll be able to reach Pluto in mere months and Mars in about 3 days. It is hoped that these spacecraft will eventually be able to travel at 20% the speed of light, making interstellar travel possible. There still might be another way. A hypervelocity star is a star that has been gravitationally catapulted out of its orbit at extremely high speeds by a black hole. If one of them ever came relatively near the solar system, we might be able to hitch a ride in its gravitational field. Who knows, we might be able to travel exceedingly long term, like so, perhaps to another galaxy. Whatever technology humans use to explore outer space, if we ever make first contact with extraterrestrial life, it is most likely to be robotic. Technology, as an extension of biology, is the arm with which we can reach out into the cosmos, ahead of our fragile bodies and dependence on the living conditions provided by the Earth. In the 1970s, we sent this plaque along with the Pioneer spacecraft, which is now a few times further from the Earth than the dwarf planet Pluto is. It's of a human man accompanied by a woman waving as in greeting to some other intelligent species in the galaxy. I personally would have had both waving to show them that we are intelligent though. We might one day get a greeting back. Have a nice day, everyone. I'd like to thank the Gibraltar Cultural Services for allowing me to use the premises to give this talk. And I'd also like to thank the Didsbury Cyber at the Albert Club for providing the platform and the company to be here tonight. Thanks, everyone. Okay?